stand up and sing with me. We were kings and queens, wake up and live your dreams. My kings and queens, stand up and sing with me.
This week, we're going to discuss the issue of voter registration. Is it important to be registered to vote? Why and why not? Are young students at college campuses even registered to vote, and do they know where to go? Over the years, there have been a number of registered voters have seen an up and down rising in the amount of people who come out to actually vote. Sometimes, as the younger adults, we get overlooked on how important our roles in the government and the things that we deal with are. These things affect us very deeply when it comes to voter registration, getting out there to vote, and speaking up on policies that affect us as students. In today's episode, we want to open up a dialogue on why young adults do and do not vote, and why they may or may not understand what it is to register to vote in the voting process. Exchange reporters took to the streets on our very own Kent State campus to talk to students about what they know on voter registration and how to get it done. Take a look.
To register to vote from the Kent State homepage, go to www.usa.gov. Once on usa.gov, the homepage, scroll down to the bottom, and on the far right, there is a button that says Find More Services. Click on it. You'll then be taken to the U.S. Government and Information page. Again, scroll down to the bottom, and in the middle, click on the Voting and Elections link. You will then be taken to another web page with 3 options. Click on the far right option that says Voting and Registering to Vote. A new page will load. Out of the 4 options listed, what you are looking for, registering to vote, is the first one. This will be one of the only times you'll be told to select the big red button in the middle of the page. This will whisk you away to the final website where you select your state. I clicked on Ohio because I live there. It'll then prompt you to download the form, and voila, fill it out, mail it in, and you're one step closer to being a registered voter. Here you can see our reporter, Kaylin Milbury, filling out her very own voter registration form. This isn't the only way to register. You can also pay a visit to your local Department of Motor Vehicles, a public assistance agency, or an armed service recruitment center. Good luck registering.
I'd like to welcome to the stage exchange reporters Sam Fuhrer and Kayla Milbury. Hi, ladies.
Hey.
So how was it going out and getting that information on how to vote and be registered to vote?
I think it was really interesting because I personally have never registered to vote, and when I was in the process of making that video and seeing how to register, it's really interesting how they have so many places you can register. I thought you just had to do it all online, but you could actually go to your local DMV. There's specific offices set up, Army recruitment centers, Navy recruitment centers, and you can register there too. So there's a lot more places than I originally thought.
Definitely. And I know you filled out your voter registration card right there on the video. Mm-hmm. So what was that like? Simple, easy, too much to handle?
It was really simple. I'm originally from Stark County, so I've done it before when I started to get my ID. But then here when I did it, it just asks you very basic questions like your name, if you're a student like me who lives on campus, so your parents' address. There are also options that says you could do voter absentee, so it's a really simple, maybe 5-minute step.
So you're here completely combating the thought that registering to vote is not this long, drawn-out, difficult process, right?
Definitely. I would say at the max, maybe 12 questions.
Wow, okay. So back to the process of voter registration, why is it that, maybe that some students, like ourselves, may not know how to do this or where to go?
I feel like it's a lot of people say that voting registration, they know it's very important, but then when they think about the process, people often think that, it's going to be a lot of form filling out, mailing it in, and it's not that many forms. It's 1-2 pages. Not all states have to mail it in. A few have online registration, and you can just do it at home, And I feel like people are almost nervous to go out and just start the whole process. But once you start it and you see, like me, I realize it's a lot simpler and quicker than people know.
Exactly. So if you had anything to say to students on campus who are not registered to vote about the process, how easy it is, and how to get it done, what would you ladies have to say? Kaylin?
I would say that just if you live on campus, it doesn't matter. I get, going to a new school, you may not know the area, but you can easily just go online or to the DMV if you're not aware of where to go.
To people that are interested in registering to vote and students, I say take that first step and go check out how to do it. Like I said, it's a lot easier than you thought. I was nervous at first to even go out and do it because I'm lazy. I can admit that. So I didn't want to have to fill out all these forms and mail it in. But like I said, it's a lot easier than you think. And honestly, I'm so excited to be able to vote in November and stuff. Like, I can't wait to feel like just how rewarding it is to know that my voice got heard,
So as far as the policies that come along with after you register vote and now you're getting ready for primaries to actually vote for candidates to run, what are some of the big things you ladies are looking for in a future candidate?
How fair they are.
Okay.
I really want my candidate to take away their own maybe like moral opinions and just focus on the good of the country.
Yeah, I'm looking for a candidate that's very kind of open. There's different opinions from everyone in the U.S. I recognize myself as an independent because I have very mixed views about different social, political issues. So I'm just looking for someone that wants to better our country, Go the USA.
Right. So with that being said, how do you guys look at the voting poll here on Kent's campus? Is there a big rush for Kent students to get out and register to vote? Are you seeing a lot of students eagerly going out and registering here on campus?
I feel like it's like a bigger thing this year actually, because I've noticed like even online on social media, a lot more of my friends are posting a lot of political things earlier on, like usually you don't have this kind of hype for like all the politicians running for president until like maybe a year before the election. But we're only, like even in this summer, we were already seeing posts about different people running, different candidates. And like, I feel like it's a really big deal now, even with we have so many more outlets to speak about it,
Definitely, definitely. Well, thank you ladies for coming on and speaking about voter registration. We have to take a quick commercial break, but when we come back, we will take a look at some more things with voter registration. Welcome back to The Exchange. Next, we'll have our roundtable discussion with Exchange reporters Kanae Hughes, Tyler Almond, and USG Matthew Chernensky. Welcome, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming. So, how important do you guys feel that it is to have students register to vote?
I think it's very important personally because if you don't vote, you basically have no voice. So any issue that you feel is a problem, you can't really complain about it because even though you had the opportunity to vote and you didn't vote, it's like when you had the opportunity to do so, you didn't want to change anything. So now that everything's going the way it is, you can't just complain about it when you had an opportunity.
It's important for young people to vote because we have so many issues at hand right now that are affecting us: college affordability, environmentalism, infrastructure spending. When we don't partake in the political system, we're pretty much sacrificing our voice, as she so well spoke on. And I think that it's important for us to be able to go to the ballot and say, these are the issues that are important to us, and this is why we are going here. So that's why I work every day to get students actively involved.
And I also think that it's important to stress the importance of why we should vote, because a lot of students simply don't know the importance because they were never informed. And I feel like having a voice as a student is important because it opens a window for you to be able to express how you feel, and then later on you can be the change in the community.
In conclusion, everything just affects us. So
Exactly. So what do you have to say about, students or young adults in general as a whole who say, well, there's so many other people voting that my vote doesn't even matter if it is or if it is not there? So what do you think is, the attitude about that, oh, my vote doesn't matter because there's millions of people voting?
well, you could be that one person whose vote actually counts, who that vote that could have changed something, and then you'll be sitting there like, well, if you did know it could have been your vote that counted, you would be like, oh, well, if I voted then something could have changed, but since I didn't vote, it's like a penny. You can be one penny short and you don't have, the amount that you need.
And then if that's the attitude, then the voting numbers will go down, because if everyone thinks that, who's going to go vote? Because, yeah.
I think it's important to remember that in 2000, 500 voters in Florida didn't go and vote, and Florida ultimately decided the presidential election in 2000 because those 500 people could have made a difference. They could have been President Al Gore instead of President Bush. And so when people say my vote doesn't matter, I mean, even if the person who you support loses by 1 million votes, it's still the fact that you went out and you took the time to exercise your most responsible civic duty. And I think that it's kind of reprehensible when people say, I don't have the time to vote, I don't want to vote, I feel like my vote doesn't matter.
Exactly. So that's all the time we have for Roundtable today. Thank you guys so much for coming in. Next up, we will have our social media sidebar segment with Abigail Noonan, our social media sidebar correspondent. Abby?
Thank you, Kayla. This week, we asked 2 social media questions in the hope of covering all sides of this week's topic. We asked you why you thought it was important to register to vote and why you didn't think it was important to vote. We found that responses to both questions showed that people did see the value in voting. Instagram user Marissa Nickel said, since there was a time when women were not allowed to vote, and they have won that privilege, it would be unfortunate for women today to not care to vote and not realize the importance of their opportunity to do so. Marissa makes an important point. Access to voting and being a part of the democratic process is not very recent in the grand scheme of things, and is not something to be taken lightly. 100 Days of K added this: if you don't vote, the old conservative white men will. We don't want them to be the only voices in our country. It isn't their future, it's ours. Kayla also brings up a good point. Young people are going to see the long-term effects of decisions made today. It's important to consider the impact these things will have on our futures and act accordingly. It's Sydney, shown a different light on the issue. As a black woman, I think of my many ancestors that were brutally attacked and beaten for their voices to be heard. It is our duty to play a role in the government in honor of them. I can't speak for people who don't vote, but I feel as if they don't realize that their vote matters and that their voices are not being accurately represented. Well said, Sydney. If we don't make our voices heard, then it's unlikely that the changes we desire will come to pass. We end with a comment from our host, Kayla Hodges, who put her opinion very concisely. If you don't vote, you don't have a voice. Make sure to follow us on Instagram at theexchange.tv2 and on Twitter at theexchangetv2 so you can make your opinion heard next week. We have to take another commercial break, but when we return, we'll be introducing another new addition to The Exchange. We'll be right back.
We're going to introduce one more segment, and it's going to be called Rant. Now, I know you guys have heard about our rant videos that we're putting on YouTube, so now this time we're giving you a chance to get a response from the people who post those videos. Last week, reporter Kayla Collins posted her rant video on the issues with Donald Trump. Kayla?
Thanks, Kayla. I did my rant video on Donald Trump last week, so we're going to go ahead and roll that.
Why you should absolutely not be voting for Donald Trump. So Donald Trump is a bigoted, misogynistic prick. I can't even believe how somebody could be this obscene on news media, and the news media continues to cover him, and so many people are following him, and that's so scary for our country. The fact that not only is he ridiculous and crazy and pedantic, but so many people are following him in our country. They're actually educated in what he's talking about and are agreeing, which is so scary to me. He goes on the GOP debate and he's like, we should fund Planned Parenthood and abortion should be illegal. How can somebody actually think that it's okay to not only not provide women with birth control and not provide a way for them to get education on their sexuality, but then make it impossible for them to have safe abortions? That's not okay. That's never okay. And his policies clearly show that. And then he goes on to say that people shouldn't be allowed to be married, and that's not what our country's founded upon. And then he wants to send every single immigrant, which, by the way, you're an immigrant. Okay, go back to freaking Germany if that's where you want to be. Everybody's an immigrant. And he wants to send them all out of our country, which we're a melting pot, but sure, send them all out of our country and then build a wall around our country. Who actually thinks that that's a feasible idea? He wants to build a wall around our country, the Great Wall of America. Unbelievable. And he just continues to state this, and then people are still following him with his crazy and ridiculous idealistic ideas, and I just can't believe it. And they keep going, and then he continues to say misogynistic things, and he continues to not care about the rights of women, and he continues to not care and be bigoted, and I just don't understand how we continue to follow him. But we do. So you shouldn't be voting for Donald Trump, because if you have literally any idea about the political system at all, which he clearly doesn't, you need to not be voting for Donald Trump. Go Bernie Sanders.
All right, guys, so that was my rant video, and here's a few of your guys' responses. So Cliff L. writes, here's a perfect example of how liberalism rots the brain. I find that interesting. The definition of liberalism is a political philosophy or worldview founded on the idea of liberty and equality. Sure, I can't expect Donald Trump supporters to be huge advocates of liberty, or certainly not equality, but come on. One of the big reasons that people are supporting Donald Trump is that he is all for liberty. I mean, liberty for white Americans, but still liberty nonetheless. So I guess you can either have your brain rotting from Trump's ideologies or liberalism. I suppose I'll take the latter on that one. So, another one that we had was O'Shore states that America is first in education spending, 28th in results. Let me just start out by saying we're sadly not #1 in education spending. Maybe our education performance would be better if our government understood how to distribute tax dollars to correct programs. Rather than commenting hateful things on my rant video, you could email your man Donald Trump and tell him, rather than pumping money into a giant wall around our country, maybe set up some policies to improve our public education and our higher education system. Maybe take a note from Bernie Sanders on a few of those policies. And lastly, G265RP throws his hat into the ring by sharing clear example of mental disorder provoked by liberal mentality, lack of common sense, etc. Mental disorders, premature death of brain cells. Disclaimer, it took me around 30 minutes to decipher the mess that is that statement. However, on the topic of mental disorders, Donald Trump had a bit to say on the issue of mental illness. Yesterday, Trump blamed mass shootings on mental illness. He states that you have a sickness in this country and throughout the world, and you're always going to have difficulty. Trump argues that more guns are the answer. Rather than making the argument to mass shootings is to provide people with more guns, he could recognize that mental illness is just as serious as physical illness, and to make strides to fund research into cures. He states it's not a question of laws, it's really the people. Our laws and policies should be a reflection of the people. If our laws are not implemented as a direct result of actions of the people, what purpose do they really serve? So that's what you guys had to say about my rant video, and those are a few of my rebuttals. And that's it. So here's Kayla with Lifting the Veil. Be ready to break down these media messages.
Welcome to the Lifting the Veil segment of the show. This week, we'll be breaking down the issue of voter registration and why young adults seem to overlook the process of voting. Young adults. We as college students have way more power than we think. Too often we hear the adults tell us that we're still kids, but we're adults. Too old to be with mommy and daddy, but too young to actually care about what's happening with our government. I say, take a stand, people. Let our older counterparts know that we're not here for the mess and that we're a part of this too. It's a very big responsibility to be able to vote. And as young people, I don't think we understand just how powerful our vote is. How often do you hear your peers talk about how their vote doesn't count? So everyone, please turn to your neighbor and pop them on the head. Really? Every vote matters. And when it gets down to it, voting doesn't hurt. So remember, kids, a closed mouth doesn't get fed. And the same goes for politics. If you never speak up, nothing ever changes. Well, that's all we have for this week's Lifting the Veil segment. We have to take another commercial break, and we'll be right back after this. Welcome back to The Exchange. Now, before we close out the show, I want to end with a few quick statements. Voting is important. If you're here and you're a college student and maybe you're not in your home state, get out there, do an absentee ballot. Register to vote. Learn about the policies that are going on in this government and what people want to bring to the table. Know who your candidates are. Know who they are, what they're going for, and what you're looking for in a future president. And also, make sure that you have a complete understanding of your voter rules in your state. How to vote, where to go, what time to be there, and how long it might take you to do so. Look back at some other voting polls and how your state does as far as on the voting level. For Ohio people, we actually are, most of the time, the make or the break for a lot of presidential candidates. They always rely on people from Ohio to be the deciding factor on the presidential vote. So if you're in Ohio, you're here at Kent State, always remember your vote counts and your vote matters. That's all the time we have for today's show. And with that closing, I like to say, don't forget to follow our social media pages. On Twitter, it's @TheExchangeTV2. On Instagram, @TheExchange.TV2. And subscribe to our YouTube channel, Exchanging Views. And don't forget to catch this episode and past episodes along with our rant video. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm Kayla Hodge, and have a great evening.